We haven't done one of these in a while, but in this episode of In Search of the World's Best Sandwich, we're back with a bang, baby. We're making a Haarlem classic, the chopped cheese. It's a burger patty chopped together with onions and cheese, served either onto a Kaiser or a long roll, together with some thinly sliced tomatoes and shredded iceberg. Basically a burger that eats like a sandwich. Now, this is one of those times where there's going to be a lot of things happening very quickly, involving a lot of ingredients, so it's a good idea to make a little mise en place. I'm going to start with the seasoning. What you want for this is adobo seasoning, but since this is not available where I live, I'm going to make my own. I'm going to combine equal parts salt, black pepper, cumin, dried oregano, paprika, onion powder, and garlic powder. Now, what I like to do is grind this mixture together with the pestle and mortar, just because I feel like everything gets incorporated together better than just mixing it. And also, some of the spices have a different grain size. And just like that, our adobo seasoning is done. Now, let's prep the salad. You're gonna need iceberg. There's just no substitute for it. I'm gonna cut a nice wedge out of it, and then I'm gonna slice it as thinly as possible. That's another non-negotiable. You want your lettuce shredded. We're also gonna need a tomato that we're gonna slice somewhat thinly. I'm gonna give half an onion a medium dice. I'm also gonna sneak in some pickles, just because I think it makes sense in this sandwich. For the cheese, I'm gonna use cheddar and whatever this is, but what this is good for is emulsion. So I'm gonna use it to bind everything together, and the cheddar I'm gonna use for the cheese pool and the flavor. The only thing I wanna do though is cut these little planks into smaller bits. Those are just gonna melt quicker. And the only thing left to prep is the roll. You can either get it on a Kaiser roll or a long roll like this one. This one just came out of the oven 15 minutes ago, so it's still nice and fresh. That also means that I'm not really gonna need to toast it afterwards. But what I wanna do right now is cut off the ends and slice it open. Now, this is not something I usually do or am an advocate of, but in this case, I wanna gut the bread a little bit. It's a skinny roll and there's a lot of stuff that needs to go inside of it. Alright, everything's prepped, let's put this thing together. Now, I have the griddle that's been preheating behind me the whole time, but of course you don't have to use one. You can just use any heavy bottom skillet. If you've seen any of my latest videos, you know that whenever I make bacon, I like to save the fat. So I'm gonna be using this today. Bonus points if you get all the onions on the griddle. Hit them with a little bit of salt. We're gonna let those hang out on the griddle, and in the meantime we can prep our beef. I've got a 200 gram or a half a pound patty of 80-20 lean to fat ratio that I'm gonna salt. We are gonna season it with adobo once it hits the griddle, but in my experience it can really use that extra pinch of salt. I'm gonna cover it with another piece of parchment paper and I'm gonna press it down and flatten it out. If you haven't picked up on it yet, we're kind of making a smash burger here. Now I'm gonna push the onions to the side into this little groove that collects all the fat. They're gonna keep gently caramelizing in there with the bacon fat. Plus they're also gonna be collecting all the beef drippings. And speaking of beef, it's time for it to hit the griddle. I'm gonna add a little bit more of the bacon fat and slap the patty right on there. I'll hit it with a generous amount of the adobo seasoning, and I'm gonna press it down just to make sure that it's making good contact with the griddle. I'm gonna let that cook for about a minute or so just so I can get a good crust on the bottom before I start chopping. I'm gonna flip the patty, and then I'm gonna get the onions out of the groove and mix them in with the beef. Then I'm gonna start chopping. Once everything is nice and chopped up together, I'm gonna add the cheddar first and then hit it with the processed cheese. This is now ready for another chop. Now, if I hadn't had the fresh roll, I could have toasted it right around this area, but since mine is fresh, I don't really have to. Now, in my excitement, I forgot to put mayo on the bread, so I'm gonna do this now, at least on the top half. As you can see, the bottom part is receiving plenty of fat, so that's not a problem. I'm also gonna hit the top with a little bit of ketchup. The pickles go in, followed by the tomatoes. We're gonna salt these, of course. And top it with the iceberg. Now this is a sloppy affair, so we absolutely need to wrap it, just like the bodega sandwich that it is. Okay, but let's see how this tastes, huh? Get out of town. This is so good. It feels like a burger, but it eats like a sandwich. And normally I don't like tomato or lettuce on my burger, but here it just makes so much sense. This is a 9er and an absolute New York classic for a reason. Go give this a try. Roll out!